I'm joined by a legendary music rock promotion executive, the mastermind behind some of the most iconic marketing stunts in music history. He's worked closely with artists like the Rolling Stones and Pink Floyd, Bruce Springsteen, Paul McCartney, Bob Dylan, and so many more. That doesn't even scratch the surface. His new book, it's called Gliders Over Hollywood. It reveals all the incredible tales, some special secrets he's never told before, like how he turned an awful live record that was roundly panned by all the critics into a gold-selling release. He shares how he took unknown artists right to number one, massively disrupting the industry and leading people to wanting him fired. We're not going to divulge all the secrets. People will have to go and get the book for that, but we're going to run through a few hand-selected stories with the man, the myth, the legend himself. Welcome to VRP Rocks, Paul Rappaport.
Thanks very much. That's quite an intro. Will you be my publicist?
I know someone who's a very good promotions person. I'll speak to him.
All right. Okay. All right. Thank you very much. Wow, I'm overwhelmed. Thanks. Thanks very much. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us here. So let's start with Gliders Over Hollywood. I mean, what was the hardest part about writing this book? Was it narrowing down all the stories? Was it revisiting the past? Was it remembering the past? Or was it something else?
I think the hardest part is the rewriting. Like you want to bring these stories to life. Writing is a craft. I learned how to write because I wrote a blog for 10 years, a rock blog on a very popular website here in the United States called Classics Du Jour. And I'm a natural storyteller. I think I got that from my dad. But when you write, that's different. That's a different craft. So the hardest part, the stories come flowing out. That was easy for me. I'm blessed. I have a photographic memory. I could actually remember as you read right in the book. I mean, these are conversations from years ago, but I can remember the conversations. I can remember the room. I can picture everything. I can tell you exactly, like what we're having for dinner. It's nuts.
Oh,
wow. So that came easy, but it's the rewriting. Like this is the real work. Like writing is rewriting. I rewrote so many of those chapters over and over just to get it right, or to look at a paragraph and go, "This is not right," or even a word, just to get the best word to convey what I wanted to convey. So and this was 6 years of a real job. Get up every morning, have a couple cups of coffee, start writing, and write for 3 hours, 6 hours, 8 hours. Sometimes stuff flows out, sometimes it doesn't. You're reworking it, throw this out, put this back in. So it's 6 years. It's 4 editors later, which frankly is why it came out so good. I mean, I know I wrote it. I probably shouldn't say that about my own book, but there were a lot of people that helped me say, "Hey, look, maybe nobody wants to know about this, but maybe this," or the Jawbone people, the publishers, they're fantastic. I mean, I would tell any of your listeners or viewers to go on the Jawbone site. There's amazing titles that these guys do. But the editor, Tom Seabrook, said, these are great stories, but how's about instead of this being chapter one, this could be the prologue, and maybe it's a little heavy, and let's move some of these chapters around to make it an even flow. Which was quite helpful. But it is the craft of looking for the exact right word to convey to the reader what you want. That's a painstaking, stories are easy. It's how do you tell it for me, that was the hard part. So.
You've done a fantastic job. That's what I can say. We'll touch quickly on the title as well, Gliders Over Hollywood. There's a wonderful story of where that comes from, because on the surface of it, it doesn't really tell what you are and what you've done. So it's an interesting title. So give us the story behind the title, Gliders Over Hollywood.
Okay, well, I couldn't come up with a title. Now, I've been working on this book for 6 years. How do you come up with a title that says it all, right? You read the book. It's a lot in there. It's a deep dive into a lot of different subjects. I knew it would have to have a subtitle of an explanation, at least if you're not going to get it from the title. And then I was talking to author friends of mine. Some of them are pretty substantial, rock writers, big time authors, and they said, well, you look for a title that if you can't say it in the title, look for something that makes people go, I wonder what this is about, and then you'll have a
Yeah.
subtitle. So again, enter Tom Seabrook from Jawbone, who went through the book and said, I'll bet you there's a title in here. Although also another fellow who helped me edit the book, a guy named Jim McKeon, same thing, said, I'll bet your title's in the book. And again, Seabrook said, look, what about this for a title, Gliders Over Hollywood? And the more I thought about it, the more I liked it because not only is it the story that you read, but it connotes what it was. Okay, it was a lot of fun. Fun was part of your job description in that era, right? I mean, that really.
Yeah.
And so it connoted that also I kind of viewed us as gliders over Hollywood. We were, the promotion people, the marketing people were sort of gliding over this make believe thing, weaving our stuff. And it just grew on me and it grew on me. And I thought, wow, I think that's what it is. So it's gliders over Hollywood. Maybe you go, what the heck's that? And then it says, airships, airplay, and the art of rock promotion. Hopefully you understand that it's something that has to, in case you miss it, they put all the names on the front, right? It's like Bob Dylan, Bruce Springsteen, Pink Floyd, Rolling Stones. You can't miss it. This is what the book's about. So it was another suggestion from this fellow, and I thought it was fantastic, and I really grew to love it. And the person who did the cover, which I love the cover, it looks like an old concert poster, psychedelic and everything, and he was fabulous. And he so it's so it's Gliders Over Hollywood, and the way he has it, he's got the airship, that we did for Pink Floyd coming over. It looks like it's coming over the Hollywood sign, which in real life it did. I mean, I flew that thing over the Hollywood sign. So, so the whole thing was were people helping me to help myself, saying, "How about this idea? How about that idea?" So that's where that comes from. The story it's just really a fun story, right? It's like the
Yeah.
brand new band Aerosmith. Believe it or not, all new bands, they don't happen right away. It all takes a lot of work because when you cut your own groove, people don't hear it right away. And people in radio and in those days, and even people today, or in the press, or people that run, Tidal and Spotify, they're very comfortable with hit music. When someone makes something different, it throws them, and they want to be safe because they want ratings. They want to make sure everybody's, listening to them. So, enter the promotion people like myself that are trying to, excuse me, talk people into new music, or open their minds to wanting to hear something brand new. Believe it or not, Aerosmith, which is today, it's probably just thought of as middle of the road rock, right? The first record that they put out, their very first album, I took it over to the big rock station in Los Angeles, KMET, and they said, Rat, that's my nickname because my last name is Rappaport. So they said, Rat, man, this is like, it's too loud and it's too raunchy. Okay, this is the programming people of a rock station.
Wow.
And I'm saying to them, yeah, but isn't rock and roll loud and raunchy? Like, but it's okay. Not everybody hears everything. And if you could go to like a radio station maybe outside of town where a lot of records broke for me. There was a radio station in Long Beach called KNAC. And there's a fellow there by the name of Ron McCoy, big music guy, guitar player. And he could play new music more freely because he wasn't under the pressure of these ratings that if you're in LA proper, you're living and dying by your ratings. And oh my God, if we play too much new music and people tune out, he didn't have to worry about it. So bands like Blue Oyster Cult started there, Aerosmith started there. And then as listeners, would like it, they'd start calling the other stations going, hey, why aren't you playing this? Or will you play this? So we always make tchotchkes. When we're serious about a band, we'll make a t-shirt, we'll make suspenders, make a hat, make whatever. I was still working on the West Coast at the time. I was a Western Coast promotion man based out of LA. And the New York office, somebody had a great idea. It's like, okay, let's make gliders for Aerosmith. We'll put Aerosmith across the wings, and this will be fun. We'll pass them out. People will toss them, in meetings or whatever. You bring them to radio, you bring them to, the Rolling Stone magazine, whatever. Everyone will have these gliders. I'm just a big kid, so as soon as I saw the gliders, I was like, well, wait a minute. Yeah. We're going to do that. But before we do that, let's do this. And there was a good buddy of mine who went on to be a great sales manager, but he started in the mailroom, like all of us did, right? Ron Sims, Spider, right? Nickname. I said, Spider, okay, we got these gliders, man. We got to go to the roof of our building, which is on Sunset Boulevard, right? It's like 14 floors up, overlooking Hollywood. I'm like, dude, we can fly these off the top of the building and see how far they can go. So we started sponsoring glider races, and people would come up at noon for lunch, and everybody would be tossing gliders. And I'm like, man, I think I can hit the freeway. Like, Spider's going, no, man, I'm going for the Hollywood Bowl. And we're adjusting wings and everything, and thermals are coming up. So the fun thing was anybody could be a guest pilot. Well, one day Elton John showed up visiting an old friend. He wasn't on Columbia, he was visiting an old friend, he used to be his road manager. So Elton shows up. So our friend's name is Johnny Baggs, who you read about, who's a character in the book. So Johnny Baggs goes, hey, I want you to meet Elton John. So we're like, oh, dude, great to meet you. And he looked like Elton John with the glasses and the platform shoes and everything. Great guy and loves music, right? So we take Elton, we would go, hey, look, come to the record room, we're gonna give you free records, which you love, stacks. Like he had stacks of records this high. We're like, hey, Elton, we're flying gliders off the top of the building. You want to fly some gliders? He was like, sure. Like he's reduced to a child. Who doesn't want to fly gliders? Like, so now we're thinking, wow, Elton, take me to the pilot. He must be a good glider pilot. Rocket Man, whatever. What do we know, right? It's great. We spent all afternoon with Elton John, like tossing gliders off the building, right? So it's just it connotes that kind of fun that we had, back then. And that's one of the reasons I wanted to write the book, because business is so different today. People worry about leaving money on the table. Oh, don't leave any money on the table. What about, excuse me, taking money and having some fun? Okay, we're going to sell albums, we're going to sell CDs, but let's put smiles on people's faces. And even, I mean, you're talking about, Paul, you're talking about a business where we had bowling in the hallways in the afternoon. We had water gun fights. I mean, these are grown men. Well, we're posing as grown men. Like, the branch manager, a guy named Jerry Pitti, who sadly just we just lost him. He just passed away. He's the biggest kid of all. And this guy's running on the Los Angeles branch, in charge of selling hundreds of thousands of albums for CBS, right? Columbia, Epic, everything else. We're having water gun fights, right? One day, I figured out, I'm going to do that old trick where you take a bucket of water and you put it on the top of a door, and you leave the door halfway open, and when the person walks in, the bucket, all right. So I'm going to trick him. So one day I walk in and there's a bucket up there. He walks in, doesn't see it. Sure enough, splashed, right? Most people would be mad, but he gets the joke, right? Okay. 3 days later, I'm in my office working. This is the branch manager of CBS Records in Los Angeles. Shows up to my office with a super soaker. Do you know what a super soaker is?
Yep.
It's a giant machine gun, water gun, but it's a tank of water on your back, right? It's a super soaker. And he's spraying me, like a flamethrower. I'm soaking wet. My desk is soaking with the paper, the couch. The carpet is completely drenched. Okay. Okay, this is welcome to business. And that was in the 70s. And the 80s wasn't, much different. As you read, I had a fencing bout with Bruce Dickinson down the hallways of Columbia Records. Why? Because we were pushing the WTF envelope. We found out that each other were fencers, right? I was like, hey, you want to go? Yeah, well, let's go down the hallways, because it'll blow people's minds, which even if you're in the record business and you've seen a lot of stuff, right? You never seen two guys like having a duel down the hallways of your office. So, I wanted people to get that the art came first and the money came second. And the fun came first and the money came second. And yeah, we all made a lot of money and it was great, but that wasn't what was paramount. What was paramount was be creative. Go out there and do something that nobody else has done. Same with artists. Make the best record you can. Go in the best recording studio you can with the best producer you can and put out the best music you can make. And then there'll be people like me who are experts in my field, and we're going to take you to another level. And so that was the beauty of the industry, was everybody working together in one big sort of rock family, to make this stuff happen. So
Love that stuff. Be creative. That's the best way to be. Now, obviously, as a music promotions executive and everything you've been over the years, you have to explain to us as well how you got into the business. Because obviously, as a music fan, you've explained your history. You were in bands. You love rock music, that sort of stuff. So, how did you become a promotions executive? How did you get into Columbia?
I actually fell into it by accident. I was playing
Okay.
in band. I loved music. I knew all the bands. I knew all the players. I could tell you who all the players were in Janis Joplin's band. I was into it, right? And every new thing that came out, I just devoured it. It was like Jeff Beck, Truth. Whoa, Cream, name it. It's like, so the person who would become my first boss, they were looking for a college rep. Columbia had a college rep program because they thought, hey, there's all this new music's coming, this new rock music. Let's have street teams out at colleges, and they can take, the albums to the local, college radio station, get a review in the paper, and put up displays in their town. And so they had wisely put together a college rep program, and they were looking for somebody at UCLA, where I was going. My boss called his attorney. His attorney was an alumni of my fraternity, AEI. I wasn't even in the house when they got the call. Somebody got on the phone, took a message, wrote a number down. I was sitting on the steps, one day, just like watching all the girls go by. And one of my fraternity brothers gave me a piece of paper. He said, um, "Somebody's looking for a part-time person to work for a record company. We think that's you." Because they knew, because I kept them up at night practicing, and I had all these stacks of amps and in my room and stuff. So, and I just called the number and just said, "Hey, here you're looking for a college rep." The funniest thing was, um, you have to remember, like, okay, this is the 60s, so you're talking 19, I think when I first got the call, it was 1969. I'm coming from the hippie generation. Okay, this is a generation of, I think we can change the world. How do we do this? Not going to be about corporations. We're all worried about working for the man. We don't want to do that. We want, as Boston wrote, like, people living in competition. Like, we don't want, so my mind is that. So so I'm asking them basic questions. Look, I love music. I might be your guy because I know all this music, but how much time does it take? I'm a student, and how much time does it take? Um, so he's telling me these things. He's telling me what I'm going to get. But the funniest thing was, he thought he'd get me with this. He goes, "Hey, you get to work with all the stars, right?" And I'm like, "Fuck the stars, man. I'm not into that shit." It's like, I'm not, I was learning how to play the blues. I can't believe I told the guy this, right? I said, "Look, man, I'm like a serious blues player, man. I don't care about the stars. I love this new music. I love talking about it." He's having trouble trying to figure out why he has to talk anybody into working in a record company in 1969. But he saw past my, being an idiot, right? So he figured out I knew what I was talking about. But then he said the magic words. I said, "Well, what do you get?" He said, "Well, you get a lot of perks." He goes, "You're going to make $15 a week. That's not bad for then in that, part time." He said, "You get all your records for free. You're going to get a camera." I go, "Wait, stop, stop, stop. What did you just say?" He said, "You get all your records for free." "I get all my records for free." "Yes." And I said, "Well, I do a little bit about, what was that?" I said, "Well, you're Columbia Records. I mean, you're the Byrds, you're Bob Dylan, you're Janis Joplin, you're Miles Davis. You're telling me I get all those records for free?" He goes, "Yeah." I said, I don't care about the camera. I don't care about any of this other stuff. Because you have to understand, I'm a blue collar kid, right? Albums are a luxury to me. People may find this hard to believe, but $3 for an album, you start having an album collection in those days, that's a lot of money. I mean, as a student, you could eat for $20 a week if you did it right. So I'm like, this can't be real. And then all my little hippie ideals are leaving gradually. Like, well, if I get all my records for free, even though it's a corporation, it can't be that bad, right? So I finally, you know the the light bulb hits, and I'm like, "Oh, all my records free." No, okay, whatever I said, I'm your man. I'm the guy. Yes, I'm the guy you want. I'm coming right now. I'm getting in my car. I'm driving right over. He goes, no, 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 son, don't come now. I'm busy. So come a week from now, right? So, so it was quite by happenstance. And then I met him. And as you read in the book, there's some funny, stories about me dealing with him. But he saw through my youth, right, and my sort of rebel. He saw somebody whose head was screwed on straight who could probably do a really good job for him. And so I did. And then I worked really hard. Um, I did some cool things at school. Then he left to go to Warner Brothers, and he said, I'm going to leave and go to Warner Brothers. You should take my job. And I said, well, Bob, I said, I'm a player, and maybe I should be like an A&R, like or a producer or something. But he gave me the best advice. He said, Paul, look, this is a hard business to get into. Just get in, take my job, do promotion for a little while. Then you can move laterally if you want, but it's so hard to get in. And Columbia is really a great place to work. They care about their people here. He said, just take my job, you'll do great. So I did. And it was great for me. I'm creative, but I could see that I could be creative in the job of promotion. Like I didn't need to be a record producer. There were other things that you could do and be creative. And I took that job, and then not long after, and that was just promotion of all genres of music in the Los Angeles area. I was promoting albums at the time. And not too long after, because FM radio was growing really big, like rock radio was starting to grow, people back in New York said, hey, I think we're going to need a specialist to run, to promote rock radio because we're starting to sell albums from these radio stations. So I became the first rock promotion man in the country, specialist as a, as an experiment. It's like, hey, rap loves rock music. Let's just tell him, hey, you're not going to work all these other projects anymore. Just work rock, but you're going to work all the labels, which turned out to be overwhelming, because there's Columbia's Epic as the sister label. But I dug work in Epic because they had Jeff Beck. I was like, hey, man, great. So I did that for a year, and then the rock really exploded. When I joined Columbia, they had Bob Dylan. They had 10 years after we had signed, 10 years after, they had Janis Joplin. The first record I ever promoted was the first Santana album when I was still in college. But then all these new artists started to come around. Billy Joel, Aerosmith, a guy named Bruce Springsteen. They're all my age, right? The other people are older, like Pink Floyd. Well, they're older than me, right? But these people are my age, and I just happen to be the record guy, and they just happen to be the artist, and we're all trying to get their career to happen together, right? That's how that is. So, so I did that. Then, before you know it, we had regional album people. I became the Western Region album rock guy for Columbia. Epic had to have they had to mirror a whole rock staff because rock just exploded. Yeah. So I did that. Then I became national on the West Coast. One day, the guy in New York who was my boss, it just wasn't working out for him. I got called into New York, and they said, look, we know you're a West Coast guy, you're a surfer, you have a West Coast brain. We know you don't really want to live in New York. So just run this for us because we're top 40 people. We have no idea how the album thing is. So just run this for us for a little while. I said, okay. So I flew to New York. I started running the album department for Columbia. And I'm starting to go, wait a second. I'm having a blast. It's like I can really do big things. First of all, I can help people that meant so much to me. Like I can go out. Like I can be a promotion person for Bob Dylan. What an honor. Like, really? And as it turned out, I was able to help Bob through some rough patches. I started to have fun. I figured out how the charts work. I was like, oh, wait, I can sort of, finesse these charts to help my, finesse is a nice word, to make things happen for our artists. And so frankly, I had to talk the guy into giving me the job because he said, Paul, look, you're a nice guy, you're a West Coast guy. He goes, this is the NFL, man. He goes, this is politics. It's heavy, the pressure. This is Columbia Records, man. Records go to number one. Number two isn't good enough, right? I said, no, you got to give me this job. Like, I'm having so much fun. And he said, I talked him into it. right? And lucky for me, there's a good friend of mine. His name is Heavy Lenny. He's a legendary promotion man. I didn't know this till later in my career. Lenny said, you know, by the way, I got called in, interviewed for your job. I said, really? He goes, yeah. He said, I was talking to Ed Hines, who was my boss. He was talking to Ed. And he said, and I asked Ed, I go, why are you interviewing me? The best rock guy in the world is right down the hall, like working for you right now. Why are you interviewing anybody else? I had no idea Lenny said that to him. Maybe that's what pushed it over the edge. You know, later I was like, Lenny, man, thanks, right? You know, so a lot of this happens by happenstance, but once I become that, then I'm competitive, right? And then it's like, okay, I'm not only want to do this, I want to be the greatest rock promotion man anybody has ever seen. I want to do shit that's going to blow people's brains apart. I want to do things that nobody's ever done. Number one, for the artist, because I love him. Look at this artist roster. Bob Dylan, the Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd. I mean, it's endless. And then there's things that aren't even in the book. I don't have time. I mean, you can't shoehorn it all in the book, right? It's Psychedelic Furs. It's Men at Work. Men at Work, come on. Midnight Oil. You know, the Bangles. I mean, it's just endless. And so I will say that I set out to be the best. I had a mentor who said, promote these artists 95%, save 5%, promote yourself because it's a fickle business. You know, if something ever happens, you need a new job, your reputation's going to matter. But I went out there to do things that nobody had ever done, to break new ground. First of all, the artists loved it. But honestly, for myself too, I'm competitive. I tried to keep the lid on my ego. I wasn't one of these ego maniacs, right? It wasn't like that, but just proud. Let's say out of pride, right? So when you read the book, you,
Yeah.
you read a lot of this stuff.
Absolutely.
that I
Some
pulled
incredible
off.
stuff in there. And the stories that you do tell are stunning. There's some phenomenal stuff. Ian Hunter in the back of the car when you get pulled over by the police and you brandix your bank card at them or whatever. That sort
Okay,
of
see, now I love
crazy
you. No
stuff.
one has mentioned that story. I thought, well, this is a fun story. You're the first guy that mentions that
See,
story. So
to me that was hilarious. Handing the copy, yeah,
yeah,
Amex or whatever it was.
yeah, no, I was when you go and you do a promotion tour, whatever you do in our business, they eventually gave us American Express cards. And whatever so it's the American Express cards pays for everything. It's paying for meals, it's paying for cars, it's paying for transportation, it's paying for plane flights, paying for hotels. It's just coming out of your wallet all the time.
Yeah.
So the story you read in the book, okay, it is the mid 70s. Guess what? There's a lot of drugs, and guess what? We're doing them. So big news flash, right? So I'm on a promotion tour with Ian Hunter, great guy, really great guy. Understands who he is, but he doesn't take it too seriously, right? It's just, you got to love this guy. But on promotion tours, lots of it's late night disc jockey FM, and then before you know it, it runs into the morning, and you're doing press, and and if you're doing some different substances, it becomes like one long movie, right? So by the fourth day, I'm pretty fuzzed out. I just don't realize how fuzzed out I am, and we're late. We're going to see Joel Selvin, big time writer for the San Francisco Chronicle, and I'm speeding in Sausalito, which that's a mistake. And I get pulled over by the cops. I see the red light. Excuse me. So I pull over. So I know, and this is embarrassing, but I wrote it anyway. I know that when you're pulled over by the police, you're supposed to hand the policeman something. I'm so fuzzed out, I can't remember what that something is. I just know I'm supposed to hand him something. So I roll down the window, and what's been the panacea for everything I've needed? What do I keep pulling out of my card? That if it's a hassle, this is what fixes the hassle. I give the cop my American Express card. Yeah. Cop takes American Express card. And he's a California cop with the big, aviator shades
Yeah.
and So he looks in the car, he sees me. I've got big hair out to here, mustache, goatee. Next to me is as Ian's assistant manager. She's all buttoned up. She looks like she just stepped out of Vogue magazine. In the back, he sees Hunter. Bigger hair, bigger sunglasses. And we must have been a sight. I mean, and the guy takes off his shades and he looks at me. He starts talking softly and he says, son, I don't know where you're from. He said, but here in Sausalito, the police, we don't take bribes, right? Then he screams at me. And if we did, do you think we take American Express? I realize what I've done. I'm like, oh, God, like we're all going to go to jail, right? I have no idea why the guy didn't make us get out of the car. I don't know why. I think he just, I can't deal with these people. I think he just said, give me your license and get out of here. He wrote me a ticket. We just go. So you read about those kind of shenanigans. So embarrassing, but yes, that's a true story. And I actually had to write a line in the book. I think I wrote a line that said, look, just so you know, these are not made up stories. Everything you read really happened. Because, Paul, I mean, look, you're talking about a business. This is business. It's business, but it's a different kind of business. Everybody's a character, right? Again, Bill Graham is spending his own money to build backstage beautiful, art pieces for bands that play for him. I mean, if you play for Bill Graham, you don't know what's going to happen backstage. It's a thing, right? Pink Floyd went backstage. They walked into a pub. I mean, it's like a British pub that Bill built so that all the people backstage could go to the pub, sit down, have a beer, have a steak and kidney pie. He wasn't worried about leaving extra money on the table. He wanted to put a big smile on the band. Hey, you're coming to play for me? Here's a big smile. This is the kind of business it is. You're talking about the guy who managed Journey, okay? Herbie Herbert, major character of all time, decides he wants to speak Yiddish. I don't know why. He's not even Jewish. He gets on a Yiddish kick, right? He sends Yiddish for Dummies out to the whole industry, his own record company, all the promoters, all the people. If you want to talk to me, there was a famous road manager, Pat Morrow, Bubba was his name. You want to talk to me or Bubba, you're going to have to speak a couple lines of Yiddish. I get the book. It's cute. Fine. Okay. I'll never forget this. It's a Thursday. I can't remember which Journey album it was, but we were selling like 50,000 albums a week. In order to keep momentum, you've got to release singles, at a timely time so that the momentum keeps going. And we had to decide the single that day. It was that Thursday because it has to be put into production. I have to call the rock stations, tell them what the new single is, blah, blah, blah. Herbie Herbert, line one. Hey, Herbie, how you doing? It's rap, da-da-da-da. Was machst du? He starts talking Yiddish. I keep saying, hey, we got to discuss the single. He keeps talking Yiddish. 2 minutes go by, he's talking Yiddish. Finally, he stops. He goes, Rap, what the fuck? A nice Jewish boy like you can't learn a couple lines of Yiddish? I'm like, Herbie, I got the book. It's cute. This is a timely conversation. We're selling 50,000 albums a week. You and I got to make a decision now. He goes, I know. Learn your Yiddish and call me back. Click. Paul, this is rock and roll business in 1980. What if I don't learn my Yiddish? We don't get the single? So I got the book. I learned, 2 lines of Yiddish. I call him back. I speak the Yiddish. We discuss the single, right? It's this kind of business. You're talking about a business where the LA branch, when I was still back there was a business meeting to discuss why the LA branch would no longer be allowed to set their table on fire at future Columbia Record conventions. This is a business meeting. Okay. Just so you guys know, you did this 2 times in a row. Somebody from New York called. We can't set our table on fire anymore. This is business. What kind of business is this? Right? Fascinatingly, half of our crew rebelled and wanted to know why not. It's like bonkers, right? So, I want to write this book. I want it archived. I want people to understand how this was, how wonderfully wacky it was, with the accent on art, with being a character. You got credit for being a character. There was nobody who wasn't a character. The assistants were characters. It's like Disneyland. It's a sitcom, but it's business. Okay, that's the record business, the rock record business is more wacky than the pop record business.
Absolutely. Some incredible stuff. And you've talked about some credible names already, but there is one band that kind of runs a thread through, and it's the Rolling Stones, and your love of the Rolling Stones. And there's a story I don't want you to mention, but people need to read it, where you're on a plane and there's copious amounts of cocaine and everything else that goes on and involved in that one. But we'll leave that one there and just tell people to read the book. But something to mention that you kind of crossed on earlier as well, where you manipulated the charts slightly as well. You did that for the Rolling Stones, didn't you? You managed to lock up the number one spot for about 3 months, and you got a lot of hate from the industry for doing so as well. So tell us about that, what you did, and what sort of feedback you got, and why it annoyed people so much.
Okay, well, first of all, for me, since I was 17 years old, the Rolling Stones, as far as rock, was everything. I mean, who doesn't like the Beatles? But when the Stones came along, I was like, these guys are my guys. Like they're dangerous. I want to be dangerous. I like them. I fell in love with Keith Richards. I learned how to play guitar listening to Rolling Stones album, listening to Keith, right? So in those days, we didn't, there's no internet, there's no YouTube. It's a tone arm. You're going, what is that guy doing? Like how? So the Rolling Stones are very, deep in here. And so when they got signed to Columbia, I was like, man, I can't wait to do some stuff for these guys just because I love them so much. I know I have to sell albums and all that, but I just want to make rock history because they made rock history. And at the time, this particular album was Steel Wheels. And before Steel Wheels, they had been kind of feuding, and Mick did a solo thing, and Keith did a solo. Anyway, they come back together and make this really great album, Steel Wheels. And when I heard it, I heard at least three rock singles on it. Now, the way the charts work, and the way they worked then, was that that radio didn't report numbers of spins at that time. Later, that it became more precise. But in those days, you excuse me, you as a radio station to the trades, you reported whether you're playing something light, medium, or in heavy rotation. Okay, heavy rotation probably 5 times a day. So this business is a business of favors. Okay, on the rock side, we're constantly giving promotions to radio stations and helping them out. I threw the Pink Floyd pig over radio stations, studios, and so when you need help, sometimes they'll help you along, right? This is how it works in rock. So, so I wanted to do something special for the Rolling Stones. I knew there were three rock singles, and I thought, okay, I know eventually they'll all become number one because it's the Rolling Stones and they're on tour. They haven't been on tour in years. This is a big tour. They're all going to become number one eventually. And when you put a new single out, the first one is going to debut at number one just because it's an explosion. It does, any large band like that. So, excuse me, first single comes out and it hits at number one. Great. Now, the usual way that you would do it is when a record starts to fade or gets burnt out, it's being played enough, after 3 or 4 weeks, you introduce another single. And as that single is going up the charts, the other single is going down the charts. They meet somewhere at number 15 or 20, and then it goes like this. But I thought, you know what? No, it's like these are the Stones. Let's make some real history. How can I debut their second single at number one? Excuse me. So what I realize is, wait, I'm not going to release the second single so fast. I'm going to wait and wait and wait until programmers are calling me going, Rap, just could you release another single? Like this song is burnt out. So I waited as long as I could, and then I released the single. And guess what happened? Because everybody's dying to play a new Rolling Stones song, right? Immediately they take out the first single and they swap it out and they put the second single in, right? And it takes that spot, that takes that number one spot, the heaviest rotation you have, that's the next Stones song. Guess what? Voila. The charts come out next week and the second single debuts at number one. So I'm thinking, man, this is great. and the other single was just kind of coming down. So now we had two singles in the top 10. So I had done this once before, which you read in the book, for a lesser known artist. I had manipulated the charts that way. It's all above board. It's all when people report, how they report, So, um, so I was like, oh my God, this is great. So, but I started to get calls from people saying, hey, you did that with that Tommy Conwell guy. You shot a record from 5 to 1. You kind of goofed up the charts. Now you're doing it with the Rolling Stones. Do you really need to do this? And I'm saying, well, I have to because number one is the Rolling Stones. Okay, they're out to set the record straight. They haven't been out in a long time. They haven't had a great album in a long time. They haven't even had a great tour. A lot of bands have come through the 80s. And the Stones are, they're coming out again. Hey guys, by the way, we're still the greatest rock and roll band in the world. And just, to make sure you know it, here's a great album. And we have a tour that's going to blow your mind, right? So I'm thinking, okay, so, hey guys, it's the Rolling Stones. They've been my favorite band my whole life. I can't help it. Sorry. Okay. That wasn't the most egregious thing, but nobody liked it. Okay. What they hated was when I did it a third time. Because I had one last, I'm trying to think of the songs in my head now. Was it Almost Here You Sigh? It was a ballad, I think. I had was Rock in a Hard Place. I can't think of all the titles right now. But anyway, so I had one more to do. I said, I'm going to do this one more time. Same thing. I just wait forever. Just wait, wait, wait. Please release another single. Fine. It's like you're an archer, like you're holding a bow back, right? Okay, finally, let the arrow fly. Sure as shit. Next week the charts come out. Aerosmith debuts at number 1. All right. I'm jumping up and down. I think it's the greatest thing in the world. The record company's thrilled. Okay. Rolling Stones not only have they have 3 number 1 singles, they've debuted at number 1, right? Which no one has ever done. Like, that's never happened. So it's rock and roll history, and I want to make rock and roll history because I want to make it for the Rolling Stones number 1. Doesn't hurt my career number 2, but I'm into making rock history. So that's great. The only problem is because now I have locked out the number 1 slot for 3 months. Any other artist who wanted to be number 1, and everybody wants to be number 1, and you're talking about major league artists. I mean, when you get into the top 5, you're talking Fleetwood Mac, ZZ Top, Bon Jovi, you name them. This is the rock genre, that we're in. But because I locked out number 1, nobody could be number 1 for 3 months rather, other than the Rolling Stones. And that's when the shit hit the fan. When they saw that one, it was blistering. The whole industry went nuts. Promotion people are calling their record company presidents, calling my record company president, Tommy Mottola at the time. Fire that guy. You can't hog the charge for 3 months. Nobody can be number 1. It's a stunt. We don't like it. I mean, it was the heat. The heat was so bad I had to leave the office. I mean, I left because I couldn't. They couldn't say I was busy, right? They're not going to buy that. They probably were looking at me to knock me off, like on the street. So I had to leave the office because the heat was so bad. But I thought, you know what, man? It's the Rolling Stones. And if anybody deserves this, they do. They've been inside here since I'm 17 years old. And guess what? I just did it. End of story, right? And they loved it. I mean, Keith Richards, he loved it. I mean, he was giving me hugs, kicking me in the butt, like, this is the girl. Oh my God. But then, okay, Keith looks at me and goes, can you do it again? I was like, Keith, if I do it again, I'm going to be killed. And then he looked at me and he goes, well, it is the Stones, man. As if to say, just kidding, but not really. Like if I had to take a bullet for the Stones, Keith would be okay with it. It's like, because it's the Stones, right? It's like, so, yeah, so I did that. And, and they deserved it. This, people think that these bands, I don't know sometimes people think the bands just like, smoke a fat one, go out and play. I mean, these bands have a work ethic. They work hard to be the best Rolling Stones they can be, right? Keith Richards rehearses this band to death, right? People don't realize this. Pink Floyd, they work at it. This is a work ethic. That's how the Rolling Stones remain the Rolling Stones, how they could still tour, So, to me, a band like that, yeah, they deserve it. They just do. So.
History in the making. Absolutely fantastic stuff. And like we said, there's so many stories in there. You've mentioned Pink Floyd so many times as well, and you're in the middle of the big split as well, and trying to work with Roger and trying to work with David and with
Yeah.
Nick as to keep Floyd going and Roger going away to try and do his solo stuff. That's all in the book. There's Elvis Costello, Paul McCartney, so many other amazing stories. But I just want to quickly touch on and the fact that it's not all highs. There are some lows as well. And you do mention a point around the kind of hair metal period when that craze was really starting to get big and take hold, and you talk about losing yourself and falling into depression and stuff. So if you don't mind just talking through a little bit about that stage as well, because it's all part of your journey, it's all part of your story as well.
No, it's not all fun. And I had some other, hard times along the way. I didn't dwell on too many of them because I wanted the book to be more of a celebration. But when when the hair band thing started, I saw a decline in musicality. I'm from the old school of people that wanted to be musicians first and rock stars second. People don't realize, but rock star is a thing that got developed in the early 70s. It wasn't a job. Like Eric Clapton didn't go, "Oh, I want to be a rock star." Didn't exist. Eric Clapton said, "I want to be a guitar virtuoso. Maybe I can make a living playing the blues, even though it's all been done before." He'd seen it. He'd seen Freddie King and B.B. King and Albert King. He said, "But maybe I can make a living doing this." He wanted to be a good player. David Gilmour wanted to be a good player, right? All these guys, Keith Richards, right? This is so. I'm used to a musicality. Okay, enter MTV, enter. Now kids are starting to see bands. Oh, I could do that. If I just learn a few chords and I'll look good. And it's not to say that hair bands don't have their own art, excuse me, or, that they shouldn't be looked upon in a certain way. But to me, I was like, there was an authenticity that was being lost. Um, this was now more of a show. Now it was more about, oh, how can we write a clever song, to sell albums. It wasn't as organic. So I became a little bit distraught. At the same time, Columbia didn't have a lot of rock bands. We always had Bruce, and some things, but we were sort of getting light, in that area. And we had a lot of experimental bands, some really cool bands like the Fishbone, amazing band. It's not really rock, right? So I tried to get it on rock radio and it just wouldn't stay. Like I could get like 50 stations, but I couldn't build it. We had some other fancy bands that were very talented, but I was so spoiled. I was so used to winning and winning big with a roster like we had. Um, so um, when I couldn't, right, when I just couldn't make records stay on radio, I took it personally. I just took it personally,
Yeah.
and I went into a deep depression. I thought maybe maybe I'm done. Maybe I've lost my touch. Maybe I'm just over. And I just went into just a deep depression about it. Thankfully, the guy who was the record company president then, a guy named Don Einer, saw it, and he believed in me. This was fantastic. I mean, he understood me. He understood who I was, how I worked, that I had vision. Because I'm a little left of center. I mean, but for a guy like him to understand me, he saw that I was having trouble and he said, "Listen, I need to talk to you. Meet me for dinner." And I said, "Okay, sure, Donnie." When and where? He goes, "Midnight in the Village." All right. Donnie, he never sleeps. He told me, he goes, "I only sleep like 3 hours a night." I mean, this guy's like, you know, when he's sitting, he's burning calories. Just this thing, right? That's who this guy is. So I'm thinking, oh, okay, midnight in the village. It must be his lunchtime. I don't know. So I go meet Donnie in the village, and he coached me up like a great coach, like right, I feel like the lowliest worm. He goes, "Look," he goes, "Rap, you're one of the," he says, "You're like one of the greatest promotion men ever. You're like the greatest rock guy, right, that there ever was." He goes, "But," he says, "but think of it like baseball. You're like Babe Ruth, but you're in a slump. You're just in a slump. You're trying to impress me because I'm the new president, and you're trying to hit home runs all the time." He goes, I just need you to get your stroke back. Go out, hit me a single, hit me a double. Just get your stroke back. You're fine. You're in a slump. That's it. That's all. It's like, just get it out of your head." I felt so wonderful that someone would take the time, with me. A lot of presidents aren't that way. They might have just said, "Hey, great run. See, here's a check." Not him. He was like, "No, no, 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 man. You got more to give. Just go out." And then, lucky for me, at the same time, Alice in Chains showed up as the next rock band, albeit very different kind of music, and it threw a lot of people off. And like nobody in rock radio wanted to play Alice in Chains because they just didn't understand it. It's kind of discordant, the parallel harmonies, it's amazing music, but it was hard on people to understand it. Even you read in the book, when I first heard it, I was like, what is this? My 10-year-old son was in the car with me going, Dad, this is amazing. I'm like, it is? He goes, oh yeah. He used to play the rest of the album, right? So I know this kid's got good ears, right? And then not too long after I saw him live, I saw Alice in Chains live in the club. Oh my God. I saw it. I saw the next big thing. It was like watching Led Zeppelin. I was like, oh my God, this is the next big thing. And we have it. Like it's on Columbia. Like we have Alice in Chains. So I went out to break Alice on mainstream radio. They've done well in the metal department on metal radio. But this is mainstream radio. The mainstream radio is still, like I said, it's Eric Clapton, it's Rolling Stones, it's John Bon Jovi. This is the first time somebody's going to play what would become grunge, right? And no one wanted to play it, and I had to work so hard to convince people. I would call them up and say, "Look, I've seen this band live. It's coming. It's just like this is a train coming down the track. It's going. You better hop on this thing. I know you don't hear it. I know you don't understand it. Don't even add the record. Just play it at night. Have your night guy just play Man in the Box. That was the first single, and you call me the next morning and tell me what happened." Well, anybody who played Man in the Box, the phone lines were just melting
Yeah.
down. Kids were like, "What is this? Like, it's a new sound," and they love it. But building that band was one station a week, one upward rotation a week. It took 3 months and I was calling in favors. I was putting my reputation on the line. I said, "Look, I put my entire reputation on the line for this band, for this song in particular. Any favor that you owe me, I want it now for Man in the Box. And I'll tell you what, here's some favors that you don't even have yet. I'm going to give you favors right now that you can ask in the future, right? You've got future favors. Just play the freaking record." And they did, and it exploded. And Alice, became Alice in Chains. I mean, they're always Alice in Chains, but I was able to help them hit mainstream, right? The mainstream public. My older son, Adam, well, he was 10 then, I think. He became their mascot. They loved the story about him turning me onto their music. You go backstage, Jerry Cantrell's got Adam on his shoulders, running him around. Great guys, tremendous people. And it's a beautiful story. It's like me at my lowest and then me at my highest. There's nothing better than breaking a new band. It's just you just can't, when you're a part of it and you watch it go. And I don't care if it's Bruce Springsteen. A lot of people think Bruce Springsteen's a superstar. But he didn't start that way. He started down here, like nobody knew him. And when you're a part of that, it's just exhilarating. And Alice, because it was so new, it was just it just was very special. And I'll just tell you one last thing. I hadn't seen them for years. Lane sadly passed away.
Yeah.
They had a new lead singer. Duvall is brilliant. And I went to see him. I hadn't seen him in a long time. And you never know. Like I don't expect people to remember me forever. You don't know what you don't know. This is like a lot of years after. So I go see him in New York. They're great. I go backstage. It's like no time had passed. Rat, hugs, kisses. Oh my God. Like my heart was melting. And I looked at the manager, Susan Silver, and I said, "Gee, Susan, God, you guys, like, thanks so much. I mean, thanks, for remembering, et cetera, et cetera." And Susan looked at him, she goes, "Are you kidding me?" She goes, "You have a backstage pass for as many people as you want for the rest of your life." Like, are you kidding? Of course, So that's the kind of guys they are. They're wonderful people. I mean, the songs are heavy. I used to tease them. I'd go, "Can't you guys write like one happy song?"
No.
I tell you, not even a happy song. Write an even song. right? Staley would look at me, oh, sorry, Rap, just dark and darker, right? So that's them, but fabulous people. Jerry Cantrell, amazing guitar player. Just
Yeah, absolutely. And it sounds like a rebirth for you at the same time as a birth of a
yes,
new
it
style of
was a
music.
rebirth for me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what happened.
Absolutely fantastic stuff. Well, it's been an absolute honor speaking with you for this time, Rap, and hearing some of your stories. I'm not going to say all of them because we've not mentioned hardly any. And you got into some deep stuff with Bob Dylan and Bruce Springsteen and everything else in there as well. It's all in your book. So just give us a quick summary and a wrap up about how people can find your book and what they can expect from it.
I think how you can find it. Just remember Gliders Over Hollywood. If I was a good promotion man, I'd have a book here and hold it up. Right? Wait a sec. Wait.
Ooh, drum roll,
I
please.
have to go. I should have thought of this. I don't know if I'm allowed to do this. I don't know. I got advanced copies. Ta-da!
There you
That's what it
go.
looks like. So if you just remember gliders like a balsa wood glider, gliders over Hollywood. If you go to Amazon or Barnes and Noble, I'd say go to your local bookstore. It comes out April 15th. It's up for pre-sale. You could get it right now on the Barnes and Noble site or the Amazon site. Just punch in Gliders Over Hollywood. It'll come up. You can read about the book. What you should expect is you're gonna you're gonna go back in time and you're gonna be there. Like you're gonna live these stories with me. This isn't a boring book of, oh, this is was and this happened. You're there. You're having conversations with Paul McCartney, Bob Dylan, Nick Mason, David Gilmour, Mick Jagger, and Keith Richards. You see it through my eyes, of course, but I want people to have fun like I had fun. I want people to understand how beautiful and wacky it was. Um, and that's why I wrote it. There's this behind the scenes characters like Herbie Herbert and Sandy Pearlman, the manager of Blue Oyster Cult. I wanted people to know these people. They were beautiful people. And that's why I wrote the book. I just wanted to celebrate these times and for readers to laugh and go, oh my God, I can't believe this. I wanted it to be a fun read. Um, so, 6 years and four editors later, you got it, right?
Absolutely, we have. Well worth getting. Make sure you pre-order it now. Gliders Over Hollywood. It's the best of the 60s through the 90s, the golden age of rock promotion. And it is Paul Rappaport's brilliant stories right from the heart. It is fantastic. Thank you so much for your time. I've loved listening to all your stories and best of luck with
Very,
the book and everything that comes forward.
you're very sweet. Thanks so much, Paul. Thanks for having me on. Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks.